The history of Guatemala, like all of the Americas, begins with the indigenous people. A great Mayan empire spanned across much of modern-day Guatemala, Belize, southern Mexico, and the western reaches of Honduras and El Salvador. With the Aztecs to the north and the Incas to the south, pre-conquest Mayan society was powerful, rich, and deeply complex. Made up of city-states connected through powerful trading routes, the Mayan Empire was one of the many great civilizations of the Americas, creating wonders of architecture, agriculture, science, and spirituality. The legacy of this great empire lives on through the descendant Mayan communities who live still in the mountainous regions that their ancestors have populated for millennia, remaining a significant portion of Guatemala's population today. When the Spanish conquistadors began their descent onto the Americas, however, they sought only to appropriate the wealth and resources of the great empires that they encountered. Obsessed with the desire for silver, enslavement, and imperial conquest, it was Pedro de Alvarado, second in command to Hernán Cortés himself, who was chosen to lead the Spanish Empire's assault in the heart of the Mayan Empire. With his soldiers, cavalry, and several indigenous allies who sought their own power by toppling the Mayans, the age of colonization in Guatemala had begun. But not all colonization came at the hands of the conquistadors. Even after achieving independence from the Spanish Empire in 1821, and finally becoming the modern republic as we know it today in 1847, Guatemala was stricken by repeated authoritarian and repressive regimes. Most significantly for the Guatemalan Revolution that would follow in 1944, there were several political and economic concessions made to the United Fruit Company, an American corporation creating plantations from what was once indigenous-owned land. The revolution in Guatemala, however, promised the possibility of labor empowerment and land ownership back to these indigenous communities, who were largely exploited for profit under United Fruit's economic rule. But the elected revolutionaries who brought agrarian reform to Guatemala frightened the Cold War-era U.S. government, which feared Soviet encroachment more than anything, let alone in a country so vital to the profits of United Fruit. After promises of agrarian reform and economic protections for Guatemalans against foreign investment and industry pressures, the CIA informally intervened by funding and supplying anti-communist and pro-Western governments into Guatemala. Because of the unpopularity of these puppet governments, their rule was extremely regressive against any and all resistance in order to maintain their control, which laid the foundations of conflict for decades of bloody civil war that would ravage Guatemala until a peace accord in 1996. And though the civil war was fought between US-backed dictatorships and leftist rebels, it was the Mayan communities which suffered the most violence, with indigenous women at the receiving end of much of this political and state-sponsored violence, as well as being at the forefront of change and hope for peace.
Yo quería preservar su memoria, y preservar su memoria en la lucha, pero también preservar su memoria en la dignidad de su verdad, legitimar su verdad. Y yo creo que eso me llevó a mí muy directamente a los temas de derechos humanos y el tema de impunidad.
Still, the echoes of this conflict bleed into the economy, society, and politics in Guatemala today, creating a push that leads many Guatemalans to find opportunity elsewhere, including the place that we all call home, Portland, Oregon. Guatemalan immigration to the United States exploded in the 1980s, including migration to Oregon, driven by opportunities provided in agriculture and forestry throughout the state. Fleeing systemic violence targeting indigenous communities and their survivors, the US-backed dictatorships accounted for 93% of human rights violations with their campaign of genocide against indigenous Guatemalans. Hundreds of villages were completely massacred, with at least 1.5 million internally displaced people, including women, children, and the elderly, seeking safety and opportunity. Many of those people settled into the Guatemalan capital itself, but others risked the journey to an entirely new country altogether, primarily the US, which promised greater safety and security, particularly from Guatemalan state violence. The Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986 and Special Agricultural Workers Program allowed amnesty, labor opportunity, and residency for Guatemalans working within the U.S. Most importantly, with residency, many of these Guatemalans were allowed to travel back to Guatemala to visit family and form connections that would inspire more migration into the area as communities began to develop. And this is the story of 5 Guatemalan women who came to call Portland home, with women as the center of our communities.
So my name is Marta Isabel Huembes Herrera. I am from Guatemala, from a small town, San Andres Itzapa, Chimaltenango. I've been here in Portland, Oregon since back 1991. And I'm the honorary consul from Guatemala in the state of Oregon since a little bit over, I think, 25 years. So I grew up in Guatemala, was raised by my grandmother. You know, she came from a very strong family who showed me that what is right and what is wrong, and with those principles and values. And I think that's who I have become and who I always have been. Up around most of my life around females. So yeah, very, and in my family, the females are very strong personalities because Mama was so strong, and then I came from the family that women are very strong personalities. So I think that it was more liberated for me, but it was hard because, and then for me, the way I was is like, no. It's like you don't have the right, and why not? I am very fortunate that I grew up with a grandmother that it was very kind, very giving, and very helpful in my small town. So she was my first teacher. But and then I started doing volunteer work since I was 15 years old at the Clinica, which is the health clinic in my hometown. And it was a lady, her name, it was Señorita, and she is the one who really got me into learn and gave me the opportunity to work, volunteer, and see the needs in our different communities. And Señorita, she was the only black woman in the town. She was amazing and very kind, and I learned a lot from her. I have the role of Mama Engma, the strong woman, my aunts, and sisters, I will say, and then Señorita, the woman that was there for me and taught me about all the injustice and racism. And so I'm always have done something for the community and different topics that I feel that it should be a change. I always have wanted it to be involved, and I been involved. So I moved here in the very, very early 90s, and I noticed that it was not it was very few Latinos in general. Nevertheless, Guatemalans, it was just a very, very few at that time that I knew. I literally start organizing with the little few Guatemalans that I knew, so we can help each other, and then start a tradition. And I literally, at that time, I started La Casa de la Cultura. That's the name of it, that it didn't have great results at that time. But with that group, that's when we start thinking, hey, we need a consulate here in Oregon. But we didn't have anything around this area. We had to travel all the way to San Francisco, which is the closest at that time consulate, or you have to travel to Los Angeles, start a meeting to do that. While I was doing that, I got in touch with this gentleman from Guatemala in Los Angeles, founder of the Casa de la Cultura in Los Angeles, and Byron Vasquez is his name, because he's the one who, when I called for information, he starts sharing with me. He goes, Marta, have we ever thought of having an honorary consul from Guatemala in your area, and that it could be helpful? I have no clue about what that meant at that time. So he shared that he knew the general consul from San Francisco. And so he is the one who got in touch with them, and then he did that. He was the bridge at that time for me to get in touch with them and ask them, what were the possibilities to have someone work with that consulate with our Guatemalans here in this area. Send a list of people that I thought that it could be a good, at the time, that it could be a good candidates to be in that leadership position. Soon after that, somebody from the government of Guatemala got in touch with me, and they asked me if I was interested of being the honorary vice consul. That's how it started. The government of Guatemala did accept my, I did accept the offer of being the vice consul. They had chosen at that time a young lady as the consul, who she was Anglo. I think it was just a few months after that, maybe, and she decided that she no longer wanted it to be the consul from Guatemala. So, and then Guatemala approached somebody else from France, and he was the honorary consul, and I was still the vice consul. Years later, the person, they decide that it was the time that I should be the consul and without any vice consul. By being the honorary consul from Guatemala, it have been giving me such a beautiful opportunity, and I am very humble that I have met such a wonderful people from Guatemala. Honor to do that and to have those relationships. How I've had affect this family, not only the person, but the family in general. And it's like you know each other, people start getting to know your work that you do, the trust. So, and then people will refer people, I know so and so, this person can help you out. So let's say if it was Guatemalan getting or not getting services, or Guatemalan being discriminated in, this blank place, and then also, Marta Wembes can help you out. So that's how I will get referrals and meeting more people. And then since I moved here, I had my job, but I also got involved in doing some volunteer work in different agencies. So that's how I built my relationship. It was not hard, but most people are more challenged. One, if they don't speak the language. One, if they don't know the system. And another issue it is that that might be afraid. And their legal status, it could be irregular. So that it will make it harder in having those barriers. So I have seen over the years how our community has suffered when it comes about discrimination and through all these years. Since the 90s to now, the process that I have seen and the changes are amazing. And I'm thinking of the positive ones. I think that there's more services for the Latino community. I think that there's a lot of services that they can get services in Spanish. One of the changes that I'm seeing is that Oregon is a sanctuary state, that it has been a good thing. I've seen when I work with Guatemalan families, I see how strong the roles are when it comes about the female and males, and how a lot of times the power and control it is over women because of the roles and what you're supposed to, hey, over here we're in United States, yeah, you as a woman, a Guatemalan, you need to go to work, but it's still when you're at home, you're still the woman.
Wow.
You still do the cooking, you still need to do the cleaning. And so I still see that if you're a woman and then you're a Latina or Guatemalan and then you're smart, that's like a big problem. And then you get all these stereotypes. Oh, she talks too much, or she always wants to fight, or all these stereotypes that men might put in there because they are feeling that maybe they're challenged by a female, and that it has been me. So I had all those challenges with men. As a woman, you're supposed to stay quiet, or maybe you don't supposed to have your own opinion, or what do you think is right or wrong, or what are your rights. I have the right to choose what I want to do with my body. I don't think a lot of things has changed. We have more rights here, but we're struggling. And one other things that I have seen is that there's a lot of migration, new immigration for females here, and I have seen some cases of trafficking with young Guatemalans, and so that's pretty sad and challenging, and changes that I did not see before. The police, and then if we have the good relationships that we need to have, and then we can just help each other to solve those cases, and the main thing it is to have a place that is safe for women in those cases. The relationships, I make them very special, and we connect as females because we can understand each other, our challenges being here in the United States, and our challenges of being alone, not having our aunties, our moms, our abuelitas here. So, and then we support each other. In Guatemala, it's like you come, you knock, hey, I make this, it's like, try this, and it's like the relationships, it's like a familia. In Guatemala, it's like you have all this familia. You have children who are born here in the United States, so they're the first generation. And it's very complex. One of the values that I grew up, it is respect. You respect children, you respect the elderly, you respect your neighbor, you respect, where you work, and you respect, if I'm gonna go to your house, I respect your rules. And in Guatemala, we go into the cemetery, we respect our ancestors who are no longer with us. And I teach my kids that we need to keep that tradition, but that's at home, but you don't see it out. They're gonna have to deal with principles and traditions at home, but then they see something else outside. So that's the things that, okay, how do we mix those traditions, how we keep ours, and how do you embrace others? I really hope that Guatemalan moms, that we keep our traditions and values in place and keep it how it should be.
Monica Leon. I've been in Portland, it's going to be 10 years. I'm from Guatemala City. In Guatemala, I got my bachelor's degree, so I'm an industrial engineer. I always like to do stuff that were not for women. Like, I love to play soccer. So I played soccer for a while since I was like probably around 11 until when I started university. And then in what I decided to study, it was like probably 1 woman per every 10 men. So I wanted to be a mechanical engineer, not an industrial, right? But many people told me, you're not even gonna get a job because women don't do that. I was probably like the first one. No, not probably. I was the first one who went to university.
Oh, wow.
Like women, right? First one that said, I'm not getting married at 20 something.
Yeah.
If I had, you know, the even if I wanted to do it, if I didn't have the support from my uncle, my grandma, I probably could have had that. I went to the university because I needed to get some papers, right? And then when I was looking around, like, there's a lot of women now.
Wow.
When I started, I was like, you literally could learn or memorize all the women's names. Probably when I went to school, it was like out of 100%, probably 10% were women.
Okay.
Now I can tell you maybe 30%. And also, I saw a lot of like the indigenous coming to the university, like women. When I finished studying in Guatemala, my engineering. So I have an uncle who lives here. I think he moved here like back in 2002. So I came here. I stayed here for I think almost 6 months, visiting my little cousin, and I enrolled in a program where I exchange language with another person. Like I was teaching her Spanish and she was teaching me English. Then at the end, when I decided, okay, I'm just gonna stay here, because at the beginning the plan was, I come here, right? Let's just live here for like 5 years, and then let's see if you like it. But if you don't, we just go back to Guatemala. I said, nah, let's just stay here. And then, like, professionally, yeah, it was hard at the beginning because I didn't speak really well, and of course I didn't have any like experience to show. Then I have to prove myself, like, okay, yeah, I'm an engineer. Yeah, that was hard. That was hard.
Yeah.
Especially coming from, because I was already working as an engineer in Guatemala. It took me a couple of years to kind of like level up on everything. So thankfully, Marta, she is from the same town as my mom's mom. So Marta found out that I was coming here. So my grandma was like, hey, can you take a look at her? Yeah, so she contacted me, and because Marta she's the Guatemalan community, she's the Latin community, she's very important.
Wow.
So, I mean, she invited me to her house. She was like, you want to be part of the consulate, and so I've been helping her like this last couple of years, not much. But at the very beginning, I got involved as a volunteer. Definitely the first year, yeah, it was a struggle because like my family is the kind of family who gets together every weekend, birthdays, Christmas. Oh my God, that was the hardest. Like on my mom's side, for them, like birthdays were like a big thing. Like my grandma would come home like 5 a.m. or fireworks, food, and she will try to catch it before you go to school or before you go to work. It was on the day of your birthday, right? Then the following weekend, you will have a birthday party. On Saturday with your friends and on Sunday with the family. So it was just like a, like another Christmas. But my other family from my dad's side, like for them, Christmas was like, because we're Catholic. So, like my grandma, she will put up the Christmas tree, probably mid-December. And then she will take it off on probably beginning of February. And it was mostly like, damn, the women. Guatemalan women, they're probably the heart of every home. I was lucky to have my 4 grandparents, like my 2 grandmas, very different, both of them. Like my mom's mom, she's very, she's a top woman. She is like hardworking. She was very like wise to managing the money and investments and stuff like that to raise their kids. She grew up like in a little town. She was very like a visionary. She had that vision, right? And she just like passed it through, like my uncles, my mom, to me. And on the other side, my other grandma, she was very like conservative, and I definitely, I grew up like visiting them pretty much every weekend and during the week. So they were like, an influence for me. They will take care of everything and everybody. Basically, maybe nowadays it's changing, but most women will stay home, you know, take care of the kids, and just do like my grandmothers did, right? Like they will organize everything. My mom being here, like my kid could probably have another example. Whatever our beliefs are, or you know, whatever we think has to be done. That's an extra person that he can see, right? And actually, because of that, we're planning that at some point when the kid probably has, I don't know, 9-10 years old, we're moving back to Guatemala.
That's
Give him
so
that
cool.
experience and you know, kind of like teach him that go from a different background, we have to work hard and this and that, so you better like, you know, be thankful with what you have. Like Hispanic kids, even my cousins, I mean, I'm like, you know, you guys don't know. Well, I'm having a boy, so definitely he's not gonna be like the macho man. He's gonna learn, you know, if he has to do all the stuff in the house, he will do it. He will respect women, he will respect men. I mean, I really want to teach him like there is no difference. No, if you're a man or a woman, same rights, same respect, and you can do the same. Really, because you know, I suffered from that being little, right? Even, I mean, I said like I had a great childhood and everything, but like if I like think about all my life, my brothers and I didn't have the same rights. So I'm like, I don't want my kids to be like that. You know, realize how kids live in Guatemala. Like for example, in the little towns, you know, kids don't go to school or they don't have healthcare. For sure, they don't have healthcare. Some of them don't even have what to eat or proper clothes. So all those things, right? So I feel like you cannot be grateful or being conscious or being humble in a better position. And, you know, all these people are not. So I want to help them. Yeah, like in Guatemala, you see like you know, like an old person like, you know, asking for money in a corner. You're like, or a little kid, or a woman, you know, pregnant women with other kids, or you will see that everywhere, right? So you kind of like become, you know, more sensitive.
So my name is Glenda Quesada, and I have been living in the U.S. or in Oregon since I was 5 years old. There wasn't going to be an opportunity for my siblings and I. We were in a very economically challenged environment. My parents wanted us to have an education, so they wanted a better opportunity for my siblings and I to be able to thrive. My dad at the time had lost his job. My mom had 2 young kids, and so she was still working, but it was really hard to make ends meet. My dad didn't want to move here. They went back to California where we were at, and my mom told my dad, well, I'm leaving with or without, like, you decide. So she packed the car up, and my dad was like, fine. My mom's a go-getter, and I feel like that's where I get a lot of my energy from. She's very persistent. She's very resilient. I do remember seeing a lot of barriers, but my mom would always tell us there is no greater barrier than yourself, and whatever you want, you can achieve. My mom had a goal in mind, and in Jansen, she was promoted very fast, and even given the opportunity to become regional manager, traveling. But my siblings and I were so young that she thought, no, I don't want to leave them. Got her GED and did other classes. She learned English fairly fast. She was younger. And my dad also speaks English-ish, but my mom's pretty fluent, and then she started working with the Beaverton School District. She was there over 20-something years. Hillsborough School District, all in the transportation department, and now she works for PCC as a transportation supervisor. I did see her struggle when she started working for Beaverton School District with some coworkers, but I remember her being very involved in the union and being able to understand there's this barrier, but also these resources. My siblings and I always talk about how she's a really good example of being persistent persistent and setting your mind and your head to a goal and being able to achieve whatever you want in life. I always admire how they just took a chance in this country, right? I feel like from the stories I hear, not a lot of people were taking chances in the early 80s to try out a new country. And I always say they're my heroes for leaving their country behind, their people, their language, their food, and being able to change the paradigm and the narrative for my siblings and I, and giving us such a wonderful opportunity. I remember writing a paper, and it was, I don't fit here, but I don't fit in Guatemala either. So I went back to Guatemala when I was 13 years old. So every summer after that, my parents would send us to Guatemala to better our Spanish. I think one of the biggest difference going back home was the sexism. So males or dads, uncles were being sat at the table and served first, and then the moms, and then the kids. And so it was always seeing that difference, that hierarchy, and I didn't necessarily like it. I don't want to use the word hate, but I was very, like, it was something I fought with. And then as I got older, I would see things like back home you can ride in the bed of a truck, and so all the kids and the moms were thrown back there, and the dads could sit in front where it was safer. You know, the sexism was very prevalent, or there weren't enough seats. Dads got to sit first, and then the mom, or whatever was left was for the moms, and then the kids. And so that was one of the something I struggled with growing up. It was a shock seeing it back home because it wasn't something I experienced at home. My dad would wash dishes and do laundry and cook for us. At one time he was a stay-at-home dad, and so when I saw that, that was really hard to accept that that's how it could be for me. I for sure was not within my own family, was not one to stay quiet or keep quiet. I would share my opinion with my dad, and I think my dad was such a great example of what a guy or a man should not be. Like, he would let me speak my mind, and let me, I've always been sort of a leader, and he really instilled such a positive note to that. He would be like, it's okay if you want to do that, it's okay to do, but yeah, he would hold me back too, like, do that, but like, do it at home. He wanted me to be my full self, but doing it at home. I tried doing it for a little bit, but again, it was just such a crash in me. Like, I could not do it. Like, I tried, and then I remember being really depressed at one point because I was like, how come I can't fulfill this, and I'm not happy. Like, I'm just not happy. Then growing up here and feeling empowered and feeling like education could take me anywhere. And I remember thinking that I didn't want to perpetuate anything negative that I saw in my family. And for that reason, I remember wanting to go to school for mental health. So I did. But again, I just thought, even if it's just within my family, within my kids, within my immediate family, or my parents back then, and my siblings, I want to be able to make a difference. Right after high school, I applied for OSU, and I got accepted, but my dad pleaded with me not to go. My mom wanted me to go, wanted me to get an education, because I feel like she knew what it had done to her going to college. I mean, she went to PCC, and so even just that really felt empowering for her, I think. And so she wanted me to go to college. My dad was the one who was like, no, girls who go to college get pregnant, and then what's going to happen, you know. The end goal for him was to find a husband, not to go to school. Well, I continued going to PCC, so I did my associates there, and then I began working with Northwest Regional ESD. I began as a para-educator, and then I became a language speech pathologist assistant. So I did my associates, and then on top of that, I did my SLPA. A lot of my family was doing level entry jobs, or cleaning, or cooking, or working in factories. And in my mid to late 20s, I loved writing resumes and cover letters and talking to people and asking, you know, what are some of your likes, and what are some of your strengths and skills and let's put that on a resume and help you find a job. I had an auntie who, she said that she was literally cleaning a toilet when I called her, and I'm like, let's work on your resume. And she started working, doing community work. One thing I tell them, let's be assertive and really assert ourselves into who we are and empower ourselves and go for that challenge. And once we're there, let's go for the next challenge. But after, I was pregnant with my third and my last one. And that's when I decided, okay, I need my bachelor's. I kept hitting walls, and I was like, I'm not going to get anywhere beyond this. I was working as a breastfeeding peer counselor with Multnomah County, but I knew that was going to be it. Like, I was just going to continue hitting a wall. I decided to go back to school. My kid was 4 days old when I was back in college. Right after that, I was working with the Oregon Latino Health Coalition, and I funded the Latina Breastfeeding Coalition, because I wanted to be able to empower moms and being able to use my bilingual skills to translate a lot of documents and give them. We opened up a warm line, and we created resources for a lot of Latina women. Later, while working with Multnomah County, I met Marta Huembes, consulate, and so she's invited me to a few things. My experience, right, with the lack of resources and the lack of opportunities back home, but being able to come to the U.S., it gave me a lot of resources and a lot of opportunities. And so growing up, I would identify a lot of, again, like what you were talking about, barriers, and being able to like, oh, okay, we can fix this barrier with this. Definitely my siblings, my mom and my dad and I went through moments where we faced discrimination or racism, and it was very blunt. It really made me want to keep to myself and being able, or being closed off to other people. When the Latino population started growing, I would be called whitewashed, and so it was like, well, I feel like I don't fit in here, but I also don't feel like I fit in here. And so I had a few friends who were in that same boat that I was, and so it worked out in the end, right? But it was really hard to feel like I connected, and that's how it also felt like when I went to Guatemala. There was, I think in 1999, our parents took us for an entire year just to be immersed in with our family, the culture, the language, and we went to school there for 9 months, and it was really hard. Again, I had very few friends. I felt like I couldn't connect with anyone. I didn't identify, so it was very much a struggle for me to find a place where I really fit. Yeah, so one of the things I do for my kids is celebrate differences, right? And also letting them know it's okay to feel whatever way they feel and whatever way they identify. Whether they identify more as being, growing up here and identifying more as an American, quote unquote, but also celebrating their heritage. And so we try and go back home at least every other year, and try and spend time there with family, and not taking them to resorts, but having that experience where they're with family and they're at a local restaurant and we're not in any fancy place. Being able to get that raw experience. But I do see them struggling to, again, trying to fit in those places. And I do empathize, but more than empathizing, I feel like I empower them to make changes, to speak out whenever they feel like something isn't comfortable. Family here, our community here is very individualistic, right? And back home it was very collective, and that's one of the things I love about my family. And I tell my kids, family's always first. The reason I went into breastfeeding was because after having my first, my auntie said, you can breastfeed, right? And I was like, what? So and I wish I had that community, because I know my grandma would have told me, my aunties back home would have told me, but something I didn't know I could do. But unfortunately, it was just me and my baby for the first 3 months of her life, and then I had to go back to work. But I think it would have made a big difference if I would have had my family or even community around. We've been able to come together. I've seen a lot of Latino groups form. I've seen the community come together, right? I think it's a lot bigger, so I think that they're working together. And I have also seen people come together to identify these barriers and work on creating resources or a solution for it, right? I've seen business advisory groups or women empowerment groups, and it's all for Latinos. I think women are very resourceful, right? I think we have to work with what we have, and I think we've learned to branch out and ask for help where I'm not saying, I feel like things are a lot easier than when my mom was here. Didn't know the language, didn't know the culture, tried figuring it out on her own with very limited people she could count on. Currently, I have 2 Spanish immersion schools for kiddos between ages 6 weeks to 6 years old, and we've grown exponentially. And so part of the monies from that go to Guatemalan organization to provide tutoring for kids. I did maternal child health, public health at a state level, but also national level. I got invited to be in a first food health equity program. I worked with the Multnomah County doing health equity work as a director at the community clinics. One of my kids was telling me, Mom, have you seen that everything you're doing now had everything to do with what you did before? So community building, organizing, empowering, really seeing.
My name is Elka Iglesias. I have 48 years old. I work for Multnomah County Library. I'm an access service assistant there. I have 12 years living here. I moved here because my brother moved to live in Portland and we are pretty close. So I just come to visit him all the time. They want my nephew born here around grandma and everybody. So my brother moved here, and then because we are a pretty close family, so I just come and visit him all the time. If they need my support to take care of my nephew, auntie work. And I always be interested to support the community. So this why I was trying to see what's going on in different countries. I'm a psychologist in Guatemala when I used to be young, I always help my mom because my mom liked to go to small towns and support the community. Teach them how to cook, to teach them how to make cakes, sewing stuff and like this, and I fall in love with that, So this why I decide I'm a kindergarten teacher, and then when I went to the university, I love to go to be a psychologist because I want to be more close to the community. I think my mom was very important part of that, because she made me. We used to go to jail too, with women jail, to teach them, to talk with them and everything. My mama is a teacher, and then one day my daddy said, you know what, if you don't want to work, it's okay. It used to be completely different, because it was more the style like a daddy works and mom take care of the kids. So my mama said, you know what, yeah, okay, I can do that, but you know what, maybe I can do more stuff. And my mom have amazing friends, and then she used to go every Wednesdays to learn with her group of friends how to do cakes, decorations, make flower bouquets. And then my mama said, you know what, I know how to do a lot of things, but I want to go harder. And then my mama used to be around the community and say, you know what, maybe they need help over there. The first time I helped my mom, she bring me to jail. It's a lot of rules to go in and work with the community, you know, but my mama give classes. Oh, they teach them. I remember one time we went over there because she wants to teach them how to do like a bouquets and stuff like that. So, for example, my mama, when I had like a 17, 18, I was older, she was like, okay, you know, in this community is like a lot of kids, pregnant kids, like 10 years old, 11, 12, 14, like that. And because in Guatemala it's still a problem with the girls, they get pregnant. It should be nice if you can talk to them, you know, and support them and see what type of abilities they have, you know. So to help them to be more good mama, and then support their kids, you know, because it's poor communities. So this is how I started falling in love with that and everything. And then I started to work with domestic violence. My first job was in Mexico, you know, for one organization over there. So I was supporting poor people around, you know. This is how we start. And then I found out the passion I have is to work for the community and support them. When I moved to Mexico, I have it was a place they call it Tepito, which is very dangerous place, you know. So they give me the opportunity to go and support families over there in small towns, you know. I know a lot of places in Mexico, and it was easy for me to look, oh, maybe this community, and maybe they need help for this, and to make me feel part of the community. And then everybody comes and hug me and everything and thank me. They say thank you so much for everything. But when I travel, I like to travel not just because know the country, it's just because I want to be part of the community. So because that experience, you know, around Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, stuff like that, countries like that, when they give me the opportunity to move here and work, I work for the library 30 hours and I support mental health like as a volunteer. We start to make the same groups I have. I have one group in Multnomah County, you know, in one of those agencies. And then with a friend of mine, I have another group. In duality, we have women, we empower women. We focus like normally here, like for example, they have a lot of domestic violence, you know, and their kids being assaulted. So basically, I teach them, you know, how is a brain when it's depressed or when it's healthy. Difference between that, you know, and make them understand why sometimes they want to be attached of the person. Them like, for example, when normally somebody have domestic violence, a lot of people make the question, say, why you don't just leave them? But you know, it's very curious because the brain start to play with your mind. This person hit me all the time. One thing, they think, you know why? If he don't hit me, he doesn't love me. Another people is say to, for example, I know I should have leave him and everything, but guess what? Oh, he was so nice when he gave me the ring. So the brain automatically bring you those kind of special moments. It's like, this is the reason why. It's not like because people don't want to leave the person. People, no, it's like your mind. Because I always encourage people, you know, especially the women's groups I have, and say, you know what? If you have a lot of abuse when you were young, guess what? You have the opportunity to cut that cycle from your kids. For your kids. Some people say, oh, I was like, my mom and my dad treat me like that, you know, so for me it's normal to treat my kids like that. And say, you know why, you don't going to cut the chain, to grow more and grow more and go on and keep going. So I try to encourage my groups to say, you know what, life is beautiful. You know, you have the opportunity to change. Every day you have the opportunity to do that. Because I do art, I'm star in Mexico. I do some, I went to the school to do art therapy. In my programs now, I do, it's for 2 hours. Normally we do like 1 hour. We talk about all the problems around mental health, you know, not just domestic violence. We talk about stress, stress post-trauma, a lot of stuff. But the second hour is for art. I do a lot of stuff about that and work with them, for example, how they can look. For example, they love mandalas. When you do mandalas works for the stress, for if you can sleep. You have to know if you paint it from the middle and out, like an in, out, out, in, or from the right to the left to the right. It's something that I really love, and I always bring into new things to the community, and people find out that, oh, I don't know how to do that, but now you know. I met Marta because in 2017, I think so, I have a tumor in my stomach, and I don't want to be here. I want to go to Guatemala and check over there with doctor in case something bad happened. Of course, my family had to take care of me. I want to be around family. So my passport expired. So they told me about Marta. So I called her, and she was super nice because she gave me a letter, you know, like a permit, just to go to Guatemala, and then over there I can renew my passport. Because without passport I can go there. And then this one, and then little by little I saw there was a lot of community over there, and I say Marta, and then I find out that Marta is similar because through Marta, because when the consulate come here, I always say I want to help. So I try to people help them how to, you know, how to make the form for the passport and stuff like that, because I want to be close to the community. But with people, they always ask me, oh, how I can do that, how I can do this. And so I try to learn about a lot of stuff that I love. So like this is easy for me to tell everything for people, reach them, you know, to do better and do this. And this is something happened to me here in Portland. The people know about my programs, and then they say, oh, they call me, Helga, I need a lawyer. You know how I can look for a lawyer? Yeah, let me send you the info. In Guatemala or in Mexico and other countries, they call you, hey, how are you doing? Good. They call you, how you doing? If you're doing okay, if you need anything, you know. Here, no. Here is like, I call you just because I need something. In the beginning, I was like, oh, wow, people like that. But now I think people is quiet. I start to put myself, you know, like, okay, I don't take things personal. You don't do anything to them. Remember, everything that I am now is because my mom. This is something that I trying to tell people, say, don't think that people are racist. Don't think that, no. You know, it's the way you look yourself. If you look yourself like somebody's going to look at you like that, and probably somebody's going to look at you like that. But if you see yourself with respect, nobody. Some people get their own kids disrespect them. You know what I mean? So what happened with that? If you show them respect, Guatemala woman now is more empowered. They have their own business. Like my sister, for example, teach me how to work. I was 13 years old, and my vacations, I used to do art stuff and sell it. When I was there, some people don't have enough money for food, or because I love art, I used to do I still doing that, you know, but I used to do my art and sell it to help the community. And
came Oregon in 2022. I married my best friend in Guatemala. Came live over here 35 years then. After I came to marry over here, because in Guatemala the work is very difficult, because my age, probably 40 years, the people don't find jobs. I am cook, chef. I open a restaurant for 5 years. The opportunity and work for 10 years more. Company closed, and for me, I don't have. I study in the university. I study for 2 years business administration. I don't have a degree or something like that. For these people, it's difficult. At the time, I had opportunity to migrate here. For me, it's a bless, because my husband bring me, and he helped all for my documents, my residence for all of this. When I came Oregon and Portland, I studied 6 months English. The 7th month, I have my permission to work. The first job, but it's very hard. It's in a warehouse. After I find it an assistant living or work, and I start or cook. In my second job, my boss is very hard, and I think so that not have trust in me. All of that I know in Guatemala, and my grandmother has a restaurant too. I very close. I like it. Stay for she. The weekends my parents so leave me with she, and I like it. Help.
That's amazing.
I don't know. I think so that this is a connect. My mother worked with my father. My parents has companies for stores, mini stores. When he sells the basic food, eggs, milk, bread, all of this. I have the opportunity to live in the city. In the city, in this time, the people don't have any more problems. But when the people migrate the departments of Guatemala to the city, is very difficult. The poor is very difficult. The children's work for help your parents. Maybe your mothers or fathers work and leave the children in house. They take care at the small people, babies. But in Guatemala there are a lot of corruption, and I think so that for the reason the people is very poor. Don't have schools, have food is difficult, very difficult. But not all Guatemala is only the departments and the people that came to migrate at the city. I think so that this is my, I think my city is dangerous right now. The violence because all people that migrate the other departments, Guatemala is 23 states, and the people migrate for the one state, for the country, for the city. This is the violence for economic middle status and have the possibilities. But the people's, for the children right now, in the generations, is very hard because in Guatemala, I remember that I can go to the street, play to the street, contact with the other children's, and right now in Guatemala is very, very difficult. There are violence, criminal, and the technology close the children in your house only with the phone. Generations, I think so that is very lost the warmth. For all young women are very difficult. Now the women in Guatemala now are go to work. There are a lot work for the women, but she has a degrees of open the possibility to the Guatemala women have a possibility to work. I think so that America needs this kind of people because there are extension of ground over here in Guatemala. The city, the people, no more people live in the city. First, in Guatemala, it's very difficult give the visa. It's very sad leave your country, very sad. But if the possibility to women come to American and with her families is very, it's good. Or the possibility to the parents came for the women came to work and her families came to help.
Around the world, women form the foundations of our communities, from the unending work of mothers, grandmothers, sisters, and aunts, to the community-driven aid and charity that is still performed largely by women, without benefits of pay or even recognition. Yet as women form connections, not just with each other, but all of society, from families to co-workers and colleagues, new communities are born where they weren't before. And slowly, this process has grown the Guatemalan community in Portland from small and disorganized in the 1980s and 90s, as immigrants began searching for more opportunity, to increasingly stable, with an honorary consulate and greater connection. And though Oregon state law grants sanctuary and legal protection to Guatemalan communities here, there are national and southern border policies that threaten the security of Guatemalans attempting to make the U.S. their home. The Immigration Act of 1990 severely limits the number of family members that a Guatemalan can sponsor to join them here in the States, creating a more isolating experience for those who immigrate here, especially women who may need more familial support to stay afloat. Family separation and detention policies also create unnecessarily vulnerable situations for women and their children at the border, using unusually cruel tactics only to deter people from crossing the border. Yet, when you have threats against your life and your family's lives, as well as a total absence of opportunities for all of your futures in your old country, you still risk everything and more at a chance for the life that you could build in the U.S. In a divided world, hatred spreads from fear, stoked by politicians who rely on fear-driven donations and hidden interests. Through these interviews, I want to show just one thing: the humanity of these Guatemalan women who so easily are made either forgotten or politicized in our current national climate. These women are your neighbors, your colleagues, your friends, and your sisters. Because not only do we possess a shared humanity between us, but as women also share the same struggles for recognition and independence, striving for connection and community, driven by similar goals and experiences, even across the farthest of borders.
We are very beautiful women. We're very smart, very loving, hard workers, completely hard workers. And we're very embracive. And we're just very strong women.
Well, I think Guatemalan women are tough. Most of them are. And like, we are raised to, go and experience any situation and, get out of it.
But the Guatemalan people are very, very hard workers.
They say that we can be aggressive, but I like to say assertive. I think we're very much like, this is what we want and this is what we need. And come here, we've been empowered. We know our rights as women. We know our place. We know our strength. We know who we are.
Right, but I always tell, I'm trying to be the best example for people, and they say, oh, Guatemalan women are like that. I say, we're strong and independent. This is what I always say to people.
This is a good opportunity to acknowledge our presence in this state, in this city. And that's a wonderful thing. I say that whoever is watching this, it is that as a woman and as a Guatemalan woman, we have many things in common with our struggles, with our challenges. And I think just that importance, if you ever have any opportunity, is to go to Guatemala and meet other women and make those connections and support each other. We talk about our challenges, but we don't do anything about it. And it's just put hands on and then make a difference by supporting another woman. And why not supporting other Guatemalan women?